So my friends, welcome to a new crypto update video. Altcoins are currently at 124,400 US dollars. Yesterday there was another new all-time high, but again just barely above the previous one. I have to say, if we take a quick look at the daily time frame, and those who watched yesterday's video know exactly what I was paying special attention to. Namely that we find a higher all-time high. This time we managed to do that. We weren't able to fill the wick completely. That's the only negative point. At least we got a daily close, actually the highest daily close ever, but we didn't surpass this wick up here, and that's what I tried to explain to you yesterday. That means for me this is kind of the limit, or rather the risk that we still have a little bit compared to 2021. Back then we also had new all-time highs, especially on the weekly chart, but we weren't able to sustainably break through that upper wick from the last all-time high in May, and then that turnaround happened. And this whole price action at the moment bothers me a bit, so you still have to act with some caution here. We'll definitely take a calm look at all of this now. Of course, also the altcoins, some of which are making very, very strong moves upward, but are still a bit hesitant at this point. Especially the big altcoins. We'll definitely take a closer look at all of that in today's update video. Before we get started now, I'd appreciate it if, as always, you leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and if you feel like it, write a comment below. Of course, that helps the algorithm, and also let me know what your price prediction is for altcoins. Are you expecting 130,000, 150,000, or do you think, no, the bull run is over? We're going much, much lower. I'd be interested to know what the general market sentiment is, and otherwise, if you feel like it, join the free Telegram talk and Signal group. Check it out. There you'll always get the latest information, including promotions like the current one from Pionex, where you can still secure your bonuses. If you deposit just $1,000 at Pionex, you'll get a 500 USDT bonus trade, which you can just use up however you like, or more specifically as a bot trade. Take advantage of that. Link is down in the video description, where you'll also find links to the other exchanges. Alright, then I'd say let's jump right in. Altcoins are currently at $124,600. So we have a new all-time high. That's wonderful at this point, but as I said on the daily chart, with the highest daily close, including the wick, of course, we haven't quite reached it yet. We closed just barely below it. This is also a bit about those technical aspects. Just how bullish are we right now? Is this just a bit of liquidity being taken or not? It still looks that way, I'll just say that. As I said, if we break above that, I'd probably be much, much more bullish, and we could even reach these targets up here of $130,000 to $150,000 in the next few days. As long as we don't get a higher daily close above that, I still think there's a chance we'll at least see a pullback. Compared to yesterday, if we zoom into the 4-hour time frame, not much has really changed. So the pullback towards 119, 117 is still somewhat considered a buy opportunity. That's definitely still on the table. We now have massive divergences, so on the 4-hour time frame we can see that quite clearly. RSI is making lower highs, volume is decreasing. In a trend phase like this, that's exactly what we don't want to see. Instead, we want to see strength, with the price continuing to pump upwards impulsively without pause, and especially breaking through the all-time high. We're not seeing that at the moment, which is why a brief pullback in this price range is currently likely. It's still very, very possible. And as I said, a pullback to 119, 117 would be good. If the position were to hold here, we would essentially have had this entire former range, if we pull it back like this, as a retest, and from here we could rise to a new all-time high, a sustainable all-time high, with fresh liquidity. We'll see how long this actually holds up. If we take a look at the funding rates, they are still exorbitant. Low, very, very low at this point, you really have to say, because there is an extreme amount of shorting going on. So you can see it, the funding rates are in some cases really back in negative territory, which means there are significantly more shorts than longs, and that is currently fueling the market. And that's despite the fact that we currently have record-breaking open interest. That means just over the weekend alone, I think about 2.5 billion in open interest was added. That's really insane, and it shows how much could potentially be liquidated to the downside in the end. But as long as we keep getting new shorts coming in, the market dynamics probably won't change much. But then we get these brief pullbacks, that's basically what it is. And when it comes to brief pullbacks, I don't even know if you can still call it that when we suddenly dump 4 to 6% here. But as I said, that's one possibility, a 4 to 6% dump and then continuing the move upward. It doesn't matter whether the funding rates are positive or negative at this point. Let's take a look at the heat map. We'll update it again right here. We should see a similar picture, unless I'm mistaken. Yes, exactly. Here too, we currently have the largest cluster between $117,000 and about $121,000. So that's exactly the area where we've now marked the buy zone. I've made a slight adjustment to the big one down here at 100,000, so now it's between $101,000 and $94,000. That one will also remain for now because, as I said, according to our Wyckoff, there's still at least the possibility that it becomes active. I think I posted that from Marbeck the day before yesterday. At this point, the possibility is still there. As I said, there's no time limit here. It's simply a Wyckoff, which you can interpret accordingly. It could still go a bit higher. This UTAD could stretch a bit further upwards before we then break downwards. So, as I said, at the moment, everything still looks relatively good. But be careful. I would never go long in such zones. Rather, as I said, wait for a pullback now. If it doesn't come, fine, then the pullback just doesn't happen. And then just keep selling spot to the upside. But going long at all-time highs with massive divergences and declining volume is usually not a good idea. Let's move on to Ethereum. Ethereum has broken through the sell zone. That means my short position is now closed at this point. The long position is still running. Let's see how much further we can rise here. The sell zone now starts up here at over $5,000. That means the next take profit, if we reach it, would be up here at $5,000. The ABC is not quite finished at this point. As I said, we still don't have a higher high. We absolutely have to get above the $4,770 mark. I'll just draw a line here in blue for a moment. We have to get above that, otherwise this scenario is still in play. Honestly, it's basically the same here as with altcoins at this point. A pullback down into the range of 4,200 to 4,100 US dollars wouldn't actually be so bad at the moment, even though, and this is the big point that's still bothering me a bit with the altcoins right now, the performance of the altcoins isn't really spectacular. With Ethereum, sure, I mean, there's no reason to complain if we say, okay, we went long down here and saw a 20% pump. Okay, that's great, but in my opinion, the performance could be a bit higher at this point. Altcoins aren't really the mega outperformers compared to other altcoins, you have to say at this point. That could still happen, as I said, but I would wait for pullbacks. If there's a new long position, I would definitely double the long position again. Shorts are off the table for me for now, so that only leaves the short on altcoins. But alright, I'll probably increase that one sooner or later. Let's move over to Solana. Solana also hasn't really convinced me here yet. The ABC is still completely in play, no outperformance from the market. From the market, $234, volume is dropping, divergences are still massive, so here too a pullback should come. $213 to $206 would be a new long opportunity where we could then ultimately activate the yellow version, meaning the bullish scenario. At the moment, you still have to assume that we'll get this dump to the downside simply because we're not seeing this outperformance and because altcoins are currently pretty much on the verge of appearing weak. For example, Hype is already undergoing the correction right now. We can see it here, ABC. We didn't get a higher high here. We were rejected perfectly at the golden pocket, or rather, at the 0.5 Fibonacci retracement level at this point. You know, the next zone that's interesting for us right now is down here in this price range, or I need to adjust it slightly, between 45 and 44 US dollars. That would basically be similar to what happened with Solana. And for Ethereum to activate the bullish scenario, and by bullish, I simply mean this yellow version here. We basically have to watch over the course of the day whether we get this turnaround here, or if this is now the starting signal for a bigger correction in Hype. I mean, by now we have a lot of competition in Hype. On the one hand, of course, also from Acer, which was extremely hyped. The buyback narrative, many others have jumped on that bandwagon and so on. You have to be cautious. Act carefully at this point. Otherwise, last but not least, I would also say that Chainlink is performing perfectly at the moment, but as I said, we still have the ABC risk here. Correction, and that this ABC could still extend into a DE, in which case the buying zone would be down here at $18. We're talking about altcoins now, and I don't want to step on anyone's toes or anything, but when it comes to altcoins, we're not out of the woods yet. Altcoins have hit a new all-time high, and by now all the altcoins are in the golden pocket or between the 0.5 and 0.76 levels. What's missing is that one god candle to the upside so we can flush out all the bearishness and then kick off a rally. That's why you should take profits. Protect yourselves and you'll be fine. Alright, let's move over to the traditional markets. Golden reached, should have, well, no, it hasn't hit the $4,000 mark yet at this point. It's really incredible. But we're getting closer and closer to our target cluster, or rather, to our target zone. It could also be that gold turns around exactly at $4,000 or just before, just to drive people crazy. So $4,000 didn't happen after all, and blah blah blah. Let's see what happens next. We're moving our buy zone higher and higher. That means it's currently at $3,640, down to $3,450. Silver is also getting closer and closer to $50. Here we were slightly rejected at the 2.618 level, so we're still in this resistance zone. If we break through there, the next targets would probably be $50 to $54. The long position continues. As I said, no short positions are planned at all. Now, euro against the US dollar. Yes, we'll probably have to wait until we get some really significant data again. There's still a shutdown in the US. So yes, dollar and euro parity at the moment, there's really not much to do. Then the traditional stocks, DAX, still haven't reached my sell zone at the top, so we'll have to watch and see if we go short here. But I'm still waiting a bit here. Dow Jones, yes, slight sideways phase. Nasdaq reached a new all-time high, just barely above our resistance zone, but there hasn't really been a strong impulse yet. Of course, that was also driven by the numbers yesterday, which... Who was it? AMD and OpenAI with their partnership. AMD pumped up by 25%, which of course also pulled the Nasdaq up a bit at this point. But otherwise, no really significant new all-time high at this point. Massive divergence, so be careful there. S&P 500, yes, since our session, only a minimal new all-time high, so not much is really happening there either at the moment. And last but not least, Circle was just incredibly boring yesterday. In the end, not much of significance truly happened, and D-Wave continues to powerfully go to the moon, so quantum computing is currently the dominant and exciting narrative. Otherwise, I would say that's it from my side. We might hear from each other again later. Otherwise, oh right, tonight it's already Tuesday again. Tonight there's a live stream at 7 p.m. Make sure to join. I'm already totally out of it, but definitely tonight, live stream at 7 p.m. Be there. I'm really looking forward to seeing you. Where we'll discuss altcoins and so on in detail. We'll discuss them. That's it from me. Until then, ciao, ciao. And as always, stay crypto.